Welcome to this latest video from DPP Planning. So by 2021, the school-age population in England is set to grow by 5.5%, meaning there will be an increase in demand for school placements. To deal with this demand, more than 640 new schools will need to be built by 2022. Modular design is an innovative development concept that can assist in providing with the increase in demand for educational facilities. And here to discuss modular education with me is DPP Director Michelle Davies. Hello, Michelle.
Hello, Jamie.
So can you tell me, why is modular construction so important to education? Based on the figures that we've just discussed there, you can see that why there's a demand in places. So why is it so important?
Yeah, well, like you say, there is a big demand, and the government has pledged a lot of money, £1 billion, in fact, in June 2020 to the school rebuilding programme. And the Department for Education is actively pushing modular methods of construction out through its new MMC framework. The key drivers for modular in any sector are cost, quality, programme and continuous improvement, which are all relevant but really pertinent for schools, I think. Off-site construction in its true form is great as it dramatically reduces the build time on site by about 50%. So that's critical when you have a live school site with teachers and pupils on it trying to work and learn. So in terms of rebuilding schools on site, often the best location to put a school is already occupied by the existing school building. So you have to work around that. And that can lead to really complicated, messy sites, maybe in the middle of a larger campus where you've got to sort out temporary construction routes and so on. So minimising the amount of time that pupils and staff have to endure that is a really big benefit. There's also less waste on site because you're not constructing on site. So there is the health and safety aspect there of a live school site with children on it. And you're not at the mercy of things such as bad weather or materials getting damaged and so on. So it does allow for a much quicker and smoother and less problem-ridden construction timescale. But the reduced build time is also really critical in terms of programme, because on schools, occupation is often tied to September or another term start date. And we actually have quite a few examples at the moment of new schools that we are trying to get through the planning process where the trust or the school has already been created and maybe sat with their first intake of pupils elsewhere in a temporary building or even a building that's not an education building. So speed of delivery and timing are of the essence in education, I would say more so than many other sectors.
You talked about some of those projects that you're working on now, but it's always nice to be able to visualise in terms of what this is going to look like. Obviously, people's perception maybe of modular building may be, like say, factory-built boxes and stuff, but it doesn't end up like that. Give us some examples of where modular has been employed in education, particularly schemes that DPP have worked on.
Yeah, so we've been involved in delivering planning permission for quite a high percentage of the schemes that have already been delivered by modular, because this has been going on for 2 or 3 years now in terms of a push. And our first real experience of modular was where we were tasked with obtaining planning permission for 9 replacement primary schools in all parts of the country, so ranging from Newcastle through Bridlington in East Yorkshire, which is one particular example, and down to Portsmouth, where they all happened pretty simultaneously. And that's where we really learned about the advantages of modular, the complexities of building on a live site, particularly the 2 schools in Portsmouth, where the existing school buildings were right in the middle of the sites, and we had to build near the frontage, which caused issues in terms of design and the perception, particularly of planning officers, local council members and adjacent residents. And from there, we've moved on. I was going to say we've moved on now into doing quite a lot of replacement school blocks within existing school sites, but also increasingly whole new schools are starting to be built now using modular. So we have got quite a large work stream for 2021 in the modular construction of schools, and they're nearly all now new free schools with a particular emphasis on SEN schools as well.
And do these modular schools, can you tell they're modular schools? Can you give us some examples of some schools you've worked on and of how they look? I know we've got some images that we can show as well.
Yeah. So they don't look like modular at all. You would never know that they were built completely in a factory off-site. And some of the examples that we can look at, I mean, there is one in Bridlington where there's a real mix of materials on there. You can see render and brick and timber cladding, which was a specific request of the local authority planners. And that is all done in the factory, and those modules arrive fully clad like that and are erected within a matter of days. So no, they don't look like modular buildings at all.
So are education and local authorities embracing modular or not enough, and if not, why not?
Well, I think nearly all of our work in modular and in schools are schools that are procured and paid for, funded by the Department for Education, who, as I say, have had a big push on modular and very much see it as the way forward. I do have one current example in Oxfordshire of a county council who have procured a new modular block through that framework, and that's an interesting site because it's greenbelt and it's also next to a listed building. But we also do quite a lot of work where we're instructed directly by local education authorities and county councils. And I personally have no experience of any consideration being given to modular solutions. And I think the reason really is that there's still an image out there of temporary cabin buildings that are freezing cold and flimsy. And unfortunately, there's still those kind of buildings all over school estates throughout the country. So schools and the trusts have very clear expectations in terms of design and quality, and also branding. School branding is a really important feature of design, and all of that can be met really well by modular. It's just a question of getting that message out there, and I think it's maybe a lack of awareness at the moment.
So do you think that modular can be a solution for helping to meet the number of school places that are required?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a number of good reasons why local education authorities and trusts should turn to look to modular. Cost is an immediate consideration and it's an obvious advantage. These buildings are much more cost effective in the long run, but there's lots and lots of reasons why they are a good option. They are produced in a really strictly controlled factory environment, as we've mentioned, but that means that quality control is really high. So there's less problems once buildings are on site. And they're a really good environmental choice. There's less waste on site, as I've already said, because they're constructed elsewhere. They increasingly use recyclable products, and so they have a much longer life cycle. I mean, we haven't really spoken about temporary modular buildings, but they are still something that are used in construction phasing and so on. Buildings like that are very high quality and can be moved around a site. And in terms of day-to-day operation, they're really energy efficient. Heating, lighting, provide a very, very comfortable learning environment. And so for the next generation, I think, who, as we know, are really, really alive to environmental issues, and that's very, very important to them. Modular buildings are a great example of that, that they can learn in.
Brilliant. Michelle, thank you very much for your time today. If you want to find out more about how DPP has been working on modular education buildings, visit the website and look out for more videos soon about the work that the firm is doing.